Good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to LSRTV and tonight's RSR Full Throttle Cup Series broadcast from the World Center of Speed, the Daytona International Speedway. My name is Jacob Seelman alongside Evan Pasoko, and we're getting ready to bring you all the action from the Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Garry Mercer Trucking. Glad to have you along for the ride with us this evening for the Garry Mercer 200 as we get ready to start the next segment of the Full Throttle Cup Series season after an off week to celebrate the Independence Day holiday. And I guess, Evan, you could call this Independence Day Monday as we get ready for what's undoubtedly going to be some fireworks both on and off the racetrack here tonight.
Yeah, we can put this very simply. It's RSR. They're running the same chase format as NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, guys. Top four in the points championships have wins. There's a lot of big names that have not visited victory lane here this evening, and much like the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series yesterday, we could see one of these underdog teams sneak away, get this W, and then be into that chase for the championship later down the road.
It's going to be very interesting, and it's not just about wins, but tonight it's also about fast speeds, and very, very fast speeds, up over 203 miles an hour average by your pole sitter tonight, the number 13 of Michael Woolley. A quick lap of 44.210 around this 2.5-mile super speedway, 203.5 miles per hour, the pole speed tonight, and sailing it off probably in excess of 206 going into these corners. It's fast, it's furious, and it does not leave you a lot of time to react if you should get a little bit squirrely on this racetrack.
Yeah, Daytona under the lights. Whenever you go racing under the lights, it always makes things more entertaining. 30 drivers scheduled to take the start. 80 laps aboard. It's just going to be another classic super speedway race. It makes them a lot more easier for us to call up here in the booth, but these guys put on a great show like we expect to see once again here tonight with the Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series.
And coming into this, the points battle spread out right now, but as you said, Evan, the chase going to tighten everything back up here very shortly. We'll get to the points in a minute. Let's go ahead and take a look at the starting lineup. As we mentioned, on the pole for tonight's Garry Mercer 200 at the Daytona International Speedway with a quick lap of 44.210 seconds, 203.5 miles per hour. The number 13 of Michael Woolley grabbing the pole. Alongside him tonight on the outside, the number 91 of Steve Gottschalk.
Take a look back at the second row. Third starting spot belongs to the 9 of Bobby Terrell. He put down a 44.3. That's still one of the fastest laps that would have topped the fastest times in practice. So these guys really stepped it up in a 15-minute open qualifying session. Terrell rolls off third. Brandon Peterson in the 78 is going to take up P4.
Row number 3 tonight finds the number 42 of Scott Stenzel on the inside. On the outside, the 14 of Joey Jatina. Row number 4 tonight finds the second place man in the point standings, the number 2 of Rhett McBride. Outside of him, the number 1 of Thomas George.
Eric Brundys rolls the 94 off inside row 5, position number 9, 10th belonging to the 31 of Eric Arnold. Jamie Moore rolls the 82 off at 11th and taking out position number 12, the 29 of Brennan Mercer.
Moving on back, row 7 tonight finds the 21 of Matt LaCrosse and the number 66 of Brian Harvey to his outside. Row 8, the number 49 of Scott Saunders and the number 68 of Scott Simley, who almost won a couple of weeks ago.
Row 9 is going to be occupied with the 92 of Jason Lester in position number 17. Alongside him, the 18th starting spot, the 27 of Guy Snyder. Rounding out row 10, Doug Manning in the 51 takes up P19. And rounding out the top Tony is the 5 of Mark Bratcher.
Row 11 tonight finds the 58 of Justin M. Wilson and the number 3 of LD Sarabia. The rest of the field really quickly, starting 23rd, the 48 of Kevin Linden, 24th, the number 59 of Garrett Atwell, Michael Gray, John Higman Jr. in row 13, Bo McGuire, Dan Murray, row 14, and shotgun on this field, not taking a qualifying time tonight, the number 11 of Jonathan Cadell, and the number 7 of James Robinson. As we get set to roll 80 laps, 200 miles, the race distance here tonight. We're glad you're with us here on LSRTV. Unpredictability, the key. Everybody in this field has a shot to go to victory lane tonight. Fasten your seatbelts. The pace car makes the hard left turn to pit road. The field in the hands of the number 13. Green flag flies in the air. We're underway at the World Center of Speed.
Willie got a good start. Steve Gottschalk at the 91 is going to pull down. He's going to bring the 78 of Brandon Peterson with him. Now 78 steps back out to the outside lane. That may open up the door for the 9 Chevy of Bobby Terrell, who started in third. Is going to draft up as the inside lane pulls ahead of the outside 3-car strong.
I'll tell you, Woolley got a nice jump there on the start and was able to drop down in front of this field very, very quickly. The guy I'm keeping an eye on started back in the 9th position, trying to get back to the bottom, and he does before he gets a run to the outside, getting a little bit of a push from the 31 of Eric Arnold. That's points leader Eric Brundys, trying to go to the outside to make some moves happen. He's got his sights set on the 42 of Scott Stenzel off turn 4.
It's going to be side by side, and we're going to have a new leader, 78 of Brandon Peterson on the outside lane from helping the 14 of Joey Jatina. As the 78 going to go to the point, does he leave his drafting partner? Yes, he does. Brandon Peterson drops to the bottom down into turn number 1, so side by side as the 14 machine tries to hang on the outside lane. Joey Jatina is going to find help with the 1 machine of Thomas J. George.
It's already getting fun right here at Daytona, and I'll tell you right now, any one of these drivers in this field tonight, Evan, we talk about the unpredictability. They've got a shot to win it, and already early, we're seeing shuffling of positions. They're changing at this point almost faster than we can even keep track of them. Lead changes 2, 3, sometimes 4 times in a lap.
And now the 78 of Brandon Peterson, he jumped down to the bottom lane after getting help from 14 of Jatina that last time by. Peterson thanks Jatina over the radio, but 78 has since jumped down to the bottom, still in the number 1 position as he has help from the pole sitter, the 13 of Michael Woolley. Those two trying to stretch out a little bit on the field as it's side by side for third, advantage to the 91 of Steve Gottschalk until on the bottom.
And I'll tell you right now, they're not going to be able to pull away too far. You break away from this draft, and they will find you, and they will take you away in a hurry. Joey Jatina in that 14, trying to chase down that front duo right now. He would love drafting help from number 9 of Bobby Terrell, who sits now in that 4th position, but Terrell not close enough to give him the shove he needs, and that is actually allowed the 78 and the 13, Peterson and Woolley, to open up about a 3-car length gap over this pack. Though I don't know how long that's going to last. They cross the stripe, and it's going to be the front 2 with a gaggle behind them, headed towards turn 1.
The 91 of Gottschalk now closes in position number 3 as we head through turns 1 and 2. The 13 of Michael Woolley had to back off the back bumper. The 78 of Brandon Peterson after they tried to hook up, and we saw them open up that little bit of gap on the pack. The bottom lane has now since caught them. The outside lane struggling. First car leading the outside charge is now the 42 of Scott Stenzel. He stepped out in front trying to find some help with 14 of Joey Jatina outside.
And I'll tell you, Jatina moved to the outside a little bit further than I think Stenzel was expecting, and the 42 got a little bit loose right there going into turn number 3, but they were able to gather it back up. The problem is they're not able to make a whole lot of time going forward. Jatina trying to push Stenzel a little bit off center to get some air to the front end of that number 14 machine. They are up to the battle for third right now, so they've started to find a little bit of head of steam right here, side by side with the 91 of Steve Gottschalk in battle for the lead off turn 2.
Down the back straightaway, there they go on the outside lane. 42 of Scott Stenzel, much like Brandon Peterson did it, is going to go to the point now as they pull down in line. 42 to position number 1 with help from 14 of Joey Jatina. The reason that inside lane lost its headway, the 13 of Michael Woolley came over the radio, told the 78 of Brandon Peterson that he was getting hot, had to back off the back bumper. That 78 Toyota, since allowing those outside guys to go out, taking the lead. And now the 42 of Scott Stenzel leads it this time by the stripe to take lap 6.
And that's going to be the game that we're going to be watching all night long, is how long can these guys push before they have to breathe these engines. You do not want to get this car too hot and risk blowing a motor before we've ever even gotten going. Of course, Evan, we talk about how long can they push right now. That's not going to matter come 2-3 laps to go. You're going to stop looking at the gauges, and it's going to be all bets are off. But right now, I think everybody trying to gauge how quickly it's going to take them to get to this race lead. And speaking of the race lead, we are wheel to wheel in turn number 3.
Yeah, the outside lane's the place to do it. 27 has lost contact, though that one machine was hustling up there on the outside lane. Thomas J. George was 7th last time by, who actually have a nose over Scott Stenzel. One machine to the point over. He is still on the outside lane. 27 to Guy Snyder is the one that is helping him. The one of Thomas J. George is clear. Will he drop down and leave his partner? Too much hesitation. And now Scott Stenzel on the inside lane get a truck back on by as the one of the 27 off of turn number 2 try to regain their momentum and take another crack at it.
They got really separated there going into turn number 1 and lose a ton of momentum and are going to be stuck now in a battle for third. The 13 of Michael Woolley trying to get a headway full of steam and trying to make the move all by himself. Now he's got some help coming out the back. The 21 of Matt Lacrosse getting into this mix, and the 91 of Gottschalk trying to come back to make that a 3-car train, storming up the inside. And now the tandem there on the outside lane about to be out to dry. Guy Snyder falling in the wrong direction, headed back to turn number 1.
Yeah, don't be surprised if you see that 13 and 21 working together. Michael Woolley sat on pole because he was right behind that 21 machine during the qualifying session, so he was working with Matt Lacrosse. The outside lane is dropping back as the 1 and the 27 who are leading that charge just can't stay hooked up. Thomas J. George, if you remember, was just nose to nose with our leader. Right now he's side by side with Michael Woolley, about 4th in line as that outside lane tries to get back going again.
And we're not seeing anything too crazy right now as they work through turns 3 and 4. We've not seen any 3-wide racing. Everybody seems pretty content. They've got 2 lanes to work with. Nobody wanting to make any crazy moves right now. Everybody kind of gauging, seeing what they've got. And one of the guys that I think is going to be somebody who's got a lot tonight, Evan, is that 42 of Scott Stenzel, because he's been able to work both the inside and the outside lane when he's needed to in these early laps. Amazingly, already working lap number 9 here, going down the back straightaway, and Stenzel with some help right now, and maybe going to get hung out to dry, and it falls back into line. It's just amazing how quickly these tandems, 1 second you'll have a partner, the next second you won't. It's a moving chess game here at Daytona, and right now Scott Stenzel heads this party.
Yeah, and the one machine is starting to make some move on the outside lane. Thomas J. George starting to sneak up there. He's about side by side with our second place car, the 14 of Joey Jatina, who rides in behind race leader 42 of Scott Stenzel. But this is also a learning experience for those guys on the outside. They saw the 42 get up there with help from the 14. The one machine gave a shot at it with help from the 27 of Guy Snyder. These guys are making these moves, really not that they're concerned with getting the number 1 spot this early in the race, but they want to know how long it's going to take them to get to the number 1 spot, how fast they can go, and how long they can push. So you can put that in your memory bank and know what you can and cannot do when you get down to the end of this race.
Coming to complete this time by 10 laps, going in the books, 25 miles in this Garry Mercer 200 here tonight from the world's center of speed. And Scott Stenzel, Joey Jatina, they have shown no signs of wanting to work with anybody else. That tandem seems to be very loyal to each other here in the early goings, although it may be a battle for the lead by the time we get to turn number 1. It is Thomas J. George up the outside of the racetrack with help from the 27 of Guy Snyder. They are side by side with the leaders, but get separated off to, again, lose a little bit of momentum in exactly the same spot they did last time they tried to make that move down the super stretch. Scott Stenzel retakes the lead, and as they head for turn number 3, it's a gaggle of cars, still 17 cars within 1 second of the race lead right now as they work through 3 and 4.
That outside lane is hanging tough. Even though the top 2 can't stay hooked up, you got the 2 machine in the mix, Rhett McBride up top, as well as the 5 of Mark Bratcher. Now the 27 of Guy Snyder gets to the bumper, and look how fast they move side by side at the stripe. Thomas J. George, the number 1 machine, didn't have to leave the stripe. He's going to get to the point. Does he go down to the bottom lane? No, the 27, Guy Snyder, once again, just can't stay hooked to the back bumper going into turn number 1. And it seems to be the problem for those top 2 guys on the outside lane is they can get hooked up. Turn 1 is just not happy with that number 27 machine of Guy Snyder as he struggles to stay on the back bumper of the number 1 Chevy. And Thomas J. George now 42 still leads. Outside lane is up to second as they continue to try to find a way around the leader.
The Daytona Shuffle moves to turn number 4, and a new player in this party, the 78 of Brandon Peterson, coming back into the mix. Third car on the inside lane with drafting help from the number 13 of Michael Woolley. Those 2 have worked their way back forward. On the inside at the stripe, Scott Stenzel again maintains the race lead, and one more time, this tandem of George and Snyder going to try it going into turn number 1. They can stay hooked up just a little bit better this time, but just don't have the steam to get there as they work off turn number 2, and a little bit of contact. Almost Matt Lacrosse got a little squirrely down the back straightaway.
It very evenly matched. The one of Thomas J. George remains pretty much side by side with the car in second. 14, Joey Jatina, who continues to ride around behind race leader, the 42 of Scott Stenzel, on that inside lane. We do have a couple of cars that have dropped off. These 25 cars, 1st through 25th, can be considered as part of the lead draft, with positions 26th through 30th led by Dan Murray. That is a 5-car pack that has kind of dropped back. They are nearly 8 seconds away from our race leader as they have kind of dropped out of this main group. Maybe a little bit of strategy playing, but Dan Murray, Jonathan Goodell, James Robinson, Scott Sanders, and Garrett Atwell are not in this lead group.
We see it all the time. This is the eye of the storm at Daytona International Speedway right now, and there are some drivers that just do not want to be in the middle of the hornet's nest right now and risk getting their equipment torn up if the storm should break at any point here in these first 60, 65, 70 laps. But if you're in this lead draft with 10 to go, then you have a shot to go to victory lane. But as of right now, I'd say that 5-car pack just dropping off this lead train, trying to have enough cars to stay together so they don't go a lap down to the race leaders, Evan, but trying to stay out of what has been a pretty dicey hornet's nest here in the early going, and it's about to be a hornet's nest for the lead again. Thomas J. George to the outside, this time has a little bit better of a run, going through 1 and 2. He is wheel to wheel with Scott Stenzel for the lead.
27 is still there. Guy Snyder's able to get to the bumper down the back straightaway. This may be the break that those guys on the outside need. Jatina gets to the back bumper of Scott Stenzel, but it's the 1 in the 27. Chugging on the outside lane down into turn number 3. Can the 1 get the room? Thomas J. George comes down into Scott Stenzel. He does get the lead position, and now Thomas J. George leads the inside row and will take the lead on lap number 15.
I guarantee you Scott Stenzel will remember that, because I would almost call that the one of Thomas George chopping the 42 of Scott Stenzel. There really probably wasn't the room for him to take that spot, but he made the room to take the spot. I guarantee you Scott Stenzel not going to take too kindly to that, Evan, right now. And boy, oh boy, Thomas George, now your race leader.
And there goes that inside view of the 42 and the 14 that were working the inside lane. They jump to the outside, and now the 27 Snyder jumps back down with his partner, Thomas J. George. So they have reverse lanes. 42 and the 14 go from inside to out, and the 1 and the 27 of George and Snyder go from the outside now to the catbird seat on the inside lane as it's door-to-door to out of back straightaway. Over the inside lane is hooked up Thomas J. George getting a push from the 27 by the start-finish, and spinning back-to-back Mark Bratcher in the traffic.
And he spins into traffic, and I don't know how he didn't collect anybody else in that mix. Mark Bratcher, how? A solo spin. That never happens when you spin into traffic at Daytona. Maybe some slight damage to a couple of these machines, but miraculously, nobody else seriously collected in that mix. Oh, boy.
And we're getting that replay
that
up,
was a
but
mess.
that was... I was expecting for a big wreck. He comes right back up, nearly gets Bobby Terrell, nearly gets the 31 of Eric Arnold. Everybody dives low, and somehow the only machine that's really going to get substantial damage is that 5 of Mark Bratcher. There is damage on the nose of the 21 car of Matt Lacrosse, and we heard a radio transmission. Mark Bratcher came over the radio and made his case that was about the second time he says that the 21 got into him, and this time 5 machine goes around. So the Toyota has been turned around. He kept it out of the wall for the most part, did get some rear end damage, but that could have very easily been a big pileup early in this race. Thankfully, everybody besides that spinning car escapes without much damage.
And at lap number 18, the caution flag flies for the first time tonight in the Garry Mercer 200 at Daytona International Speedway, and allows us a little bit of time to catch our breath right here, Evan, as these cars will slow down to the customary 60 or so miles an hour under this caution flag. Thomas George, your leader, Guy Snyder up to second. That tandem working very well together. Scott Stenzel third, Brandon Peterson fourth, Joey Jatina, the rest of your top 5, Evan. And already we're almost a quarter of the way through this race. What have we learned from these first 18 laps?
We've learned that the outside lane can work. The outside lane has hung in there, and if you can get hooked up, if you're the top 2 cars that are leading the outside lane, you can get the job done. You don't need to be pushing all the time to stick with them. That just means we got a competitive setup. We got a competitive format for this race. That just means it's going to be more exciting for us. Maybe not what some of the drivers were hoping for. They might have been hoping that that inside lane may be more dominant, but we saw a lot of guys hanging tough, including our race leader, Thomas J. George. Outside lane, the way to make the passes so far as we all lead them down pit road for caution flag pit stops.
Thomas George, Guy Snyder going to be the first 2 to bring this entire freight train down the pit road for the first time tonight as we click off lap number 18 and going to start to work lap number 19. Your leader hits his pit stall and looks like probably going to be routine service for all of these race leaders. Right side's going up on the number 1 machine of your race leader. 2 tires and he is down and away. Thomas J. George driving right away. He'll have his tandem partner, the number 27 of Guy Snyder, right with him on this restart. They'll make up the front row as it looks like 2 tires, Evan, for most of our race leaders. And interesting strategy play, but then tire wear not necessarily one of the biggest factors here at Daytona. So we're going to see how everything shakes out. But right now, under this first caution flag of the night, we are going to take a caution flag right here and head to break on LSRTV. And when we come back, we'll get you geared up for the restart and the continuation of this Garry Mercer 200 from Daytona International Speedway. This is the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series on LSRTV.
Trucking has always been a part of me. It started years ago when my dad and granddad were hauling vegetables to market in Liverpool. The family immigrated to Canada in the late 60s and settled near Alliston, Ontario. I bought my first truck in 1982 and Mercer Trucking was born. Today, Mercer Trucking has over 50 trucks in terminals in Toronto and Los Angeles. Our storage facilities at both terminals can handle any size of distribution needs throughout North America. We service the continental U.S., including Hawaii and Alaska. We run over 120,000 miles per month and some of the best equipment on the road today. We specialize in less than truckload shipments, show freight, we do rush team service deliveries, and haul your refrigerated or heated product. Our regular team service from Canada to California is second to none, and our staff and drivers are among the best in the business. I'm proud of our people and what they can achieve. Trucking is in my blood, it's my livelihood, and it's what I do best.
Welcome back to LSRTV and the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series. Jacob Seelman and Evan Pasoko here in the broadcast booth high above the World Center of Speed just after caution flag pit stops for the first time tonight. Yellow flying at lap number 18 as we had a, hard to believe, Evan, a solo spin. The number 5 of Mark Bratcher going around almost collected a couple of other cars in traffic going into turn number 1, but thankfully most of this field escapes unscathed. And now, with 1/4 of this race complete, we are just about set to go back green flag racing. And Thomas George, Guy Snyder, the tandem that got the race lead just before that caution flag flew, well, they're going to be on the front row as we get set to go back to green flag racing and waiting for that pace car to make the all-important cut to pit road. There it goes, and Thomas George ready to rock and roll. Green flag goes back in the air. We're back underway, and how long will it take for that front tandem to get sorted out and get back single file? Well, we thought they were going to do it going into turn number 1. Instead, right now, they're still 2 by 2 and waiting to see who's going to make the first move to the bottom. Looks like the 27 of Guy Snyder going to try. No, he's going to get a push from the 78 of Brandon Peterson. The dominant tandem, Evan, splits now as Scott Stenzel pushing the Thomas George machine to the race lead down the super stretch.
It looked like Thomas George tried to back it down a little bit, allow Guy Snyder to slide up in front of him through 1 and 2, but the 42 of Scott Stenzel giving him the shove there on the bottom lane made that not capable. So now the 42 of Stenzel, he's pushing to one of Thomas J. George, and the 27 of Guy Snyder has help from the 78 of Brandon Peterson. George with the advantage off of turn 4.
And I'll tell you, Thomas George and Scott Stenzel, that might be the 2 most dominant cars in this field, now hooked up nose to tail, but they've got a challenge up the outside of the racetrack. The number 78 of Brandon Peterson with a full head of steam, trying to shove the 27 of Guy Snyder to the race lead. 4 cars under a blanket. They are wheel to wheel coming off turn number 2, and the 13 of Michael Woolley in 5th. He's trying to find a hole to make some noise as well.
There goes that outside lane into 3 with that big run that they got off at turn number 2. The 27 of Snyder is clear of the inside lane. Does he jump down low, or does he stay with his partner now, Thomas J. George, with the run on the inside lane? However, the top 2 on the outside lane are hooked up. The 42 of Stenzel is not on the back bumper of Thomas J. George, and this time by the stripe, Guy Snyder with the advantage door-to-door for second, but here comes that inside lane. It's 2 tandems in the top 4.
And it is 2 tandems that do not want to give up 1 inch of ground to each other right now. And finally, the number 42 of Scott Stenzel gets the 1 of Thomas J. George up the push that he needs. and that tandem, the 27 of Guy Snyder and the 78 of Brandon Peterson, going to lose about 4 spots. They're going to fall all the way back to 5th and 6th, or maybe further than that, because all of a sudden, the 13 of Michael Woolley hooked up to the back bumper of the 42. It may be the 42 that's about to abandon ship, because he may have a new drafting partner off turn 4.
78 of Brandon Peterson dives down low, which leaves the 27 of Guy Snyder hung out to dry. Now here comes the 2 of Rhett McBride trying to do it on his own. Steps out side by side for 3rd. The 13 of Michael Woolley, pole sitter, now back up into the top 3 as he tries to battle as he sits on the back bumper of the 42 of Scott Stenzel. But Rhett McBride on the outside lane by himself in the 2 car has got up side by side with the car in 2nd. He's going to bring up the 27 Guy Snyder in tow, so that almost saves Menard Chevy 27 of Rhett McBride on the outside lane. But now the 42 of Stenzel back hooked up with the one of Thomas J. George on the bottom. They cleared that outside charge for the time being in 3 and 4.
And I'll tell you right now, that was a power move that almost paid off in a really big way, rep by the 2 of Rhett McBride, Evan. And this allows us to bring up a pretty interesting concept that we only ever talk about at Daytona and Talladega, and that's the side draft. And Rhett McBride, using that almost to perfection, gets all the way up side by side with Scott Stenzel. But that side draft can really break a lot of the momentum of these cars if you can use it in just the right way down one of these straightaways.
And that's something that we heard with the 42 and the 1 machine. They were discussing that earlier, how Thomas J. George, when he was trying to work that outside lane, his drafting partner was letting him know, you don't got to be so aggressive with the side draft. What a move by the 2 of Rhett McBride. The 42 of Stenzel went out in front of him. The 2 of Rhett McBride just slides down low with a power move. He now finds himself in 2nd, up on the back bumper of Thomas J. George. The 1 car's in 1st. The 2nd car is in 2nd. So 1-2 are 1-2 on a racetrack. But now here comes the 42 of Scott Stenzel. He has found the 27 of Guy Snyder. They're going to make a charge on the outside into turn 1.
To the outside goes the 42 of Scott Stenzel. They've got the big run, and the 1 and the 2 of George and McBride separated down the back straightaway. Scott Stenzel slides to the bottom, hangs the 27 of Guy Snyder out to dry. A lonely man is Guy Snyder, but Scott Stenzel back to the point where he has been already for 15 laps in this race. Going to try to make it 16 when they get back to the stripe. Now with a push from the 1 of Thomas J. George, Scott Stenzel to the lead with a very strong drafting move down the super stretch. And now the 42 and the 1 trying to gap the rest of this field. They've already got 2 car lengths as they head back across the stripe.
And this pack is a lot more strung out than what we saw on that initial green flag run for the first 18 laps. During that period, the outside lane was at least 7 cars strong. Now it's almost all single file on the inside lane. Not really a freight train. We got a couple of tandems going, the top 2 trying to push. They're not going to get too far away, but they have opened up a little bit of gap over the car in 3rd. That is the number 2 of Rhett McBride. McBride now has the 13 of Michael Woolley, who has shown that he has a blistering fast machine after putting down a solid pole time to sit on the number 1 spot. Those 2 now start to close in on our top 2 on the racetrack as the 42 and the 1 get separated at the corner number 4.
And while we're looking at this running order here, 27 laps going to go in the books when they cross the start-finish line. And Evan, the name we've not talked about all night long is the 94 of Eric Brundys, the points leader coming into the night with 3 wins on the season, including a win just in the last 2 weeks. The 94 of Brundys currently sits back in the 22nd position, almost 3 seconds behind the race leader. Really unusual to see him back this far, because we did not think he was going to be one of the drivers that wanted to hang out at the back of this field and wait for the carnage to happen. We figured he would be towards the front of this pack tonight, trying to dice it up for the lead.
And you got to think that it may be that scenario that he dropped back. I mean, Eric Brundys put down a solid time in qualifying, started inside the top 10 in position number 9. You mentioned he sits 22nd right now on the racetrack and well clear of that lead draft if anything were to happen. So maybe a little bit of a strategy call on the part of Eric Brundys, but he did have a solid qualifying spot, so not sure if it is the strategy or if something caused that 94. No damage on it, so it looks like he may just be drifting back and hanging out. I know he has a 29 of Brendan Mercer. Mercer sitting behind him in 23rd, who also had a good qualifying time. Brendan Mercer started in 12th, so those 2 drivers currently together on the racetrack had times that were in the top 12 in qualifying. Appears that they may have just dropped back together.
Right now, the top 6 ride single file. It was going to be a battle for 7th place between the 27 of Guy Snyder and I believe the 92 of Jason Lester. First time we've talked about him so far tonight, but now everybody drops in single file as they go around what is now a lap car of Mark Bratcher in the number 5 machine, that wounded car. But it looks like right now at least the top 7 content to run single file right around that double yellow line here at the Daytona International Speedway. And as we've heard so many drivers, both in sim racing and in real life, say over the years, Evan, at Daytona, that yellow line is your best friend. If you're going to make somebody make a move, you've got to force them to go to the outside, because the shortest way around often enough will lead you to victory lane.
Everybody is now kind of single filed out. One car trying to work the outside lane is still that 27 of Guy Snyder. He's been up to the front and he's been abandoned about 2 times there on the outside lane. He is making some headway because these guys on the inside, they don't have that gas pinned down all the way around this racetrack. They're checking up, giving everybody a little bit of room so they're not all bunching up and scrunching together up in front of the field. Since they're backing off and trying to keep a good distance riding around the 27, full on that gas on the outside lane, trying to utilize that side track to see he tries to sneak down as much as he can down that back straightaway. Oh, he's the only get turned. The 14 of Joey Jatina moves up and he hangs on as Guy Snyder nearly goes for a ride. He might have scraped the wall, but the 27 Menard Chevy keeps pointed the right direction after a close call down the back.
Hold your breath and hang on tight. That was almost disaster for the second time, as now we're 3 wide in the middle of the pack right here. The 27 going to get stuffed in the middle as he's got a tandem to his outside, and the freight train to the inside right now. Snyder going the wrong direction in a hurry. I think he does have some problems, Evan, because he is now dropping like a stone through this field.
He just went through that middle lane and has dropped all the way to nearly outside of the top 15. Just got demolished as the 50 of Beau McGuire jumped out to the outside lane, brought the 49 of Scott Sanders in tow with him. And now we get some action. Rhett McBride is tired of riding around in third. He jumps out to the outside lane along with the 78 of Brandon Peterson. They now lead a charge of about 4 or 5 cars on the outside lane who are tired of riding in line. That 2 machine wants to go to the point. They're starting to make some headway through the front straightaway as they head off into turn number 1. McBride has got up to second.
And it's about to be more than that as Rhett McBride trying to work that outside lane. Scott Stenzel tried to move up to block the run instead. It's going to be McBride and Peterson down the back straightaway. Battle for the race lead. Rhett McBride pokes a nose, half a car length out in front with a huge head of steam from the number 78. However, is he going to have enough to clear into turn 3? He is not. They're still wheel to wheel for the race lead through turn number 3. McBride on the outside, Stenzel on the inside. Off turn 4, the inside tandem of Stenzel and George gets separated just a little bit, and I believe that's going to be enough to give McBride the lead at the start-finish line. Yes, it is.
McBride is clear. Does he jump down or does he hang with Peterson? He has one more shot at it. He's got to decide quickly in the number 2 Toyota. He's thinking about it, and he's going to stay up high because the 42 of Stenzel has now snooked back to the inside lane, side by side up front, as both the inside and the outside lanes have become separated with their lead tandems. Now the 78 of Peterson back up on the back bumper of Rhett McBride. The top 2 on the outside lane continue to push. The 2 machine, again, Rhett McBride is cleared. He's trying to not leave his drafting partner, that 78 of Brandon Peterson, out to dry as now Stenzel tries to battle back on the inside out of 4.
Rhett McBride is trying to do something that we see a lot of people do at Daytona, and sometimes successfully. In this case, it hasn't been until right then when he just abandoned ship to the bottom of the racetrack. He was trying to work both lanes, Evan. Go inside, go outside, whichever lane's faster, that's the lane you want to go with. As the leader, you've got that prerogative. The problem is, every once in a while, one of those lanes is going to have such a head of steam that you can't move up in time to block it. McBride doing a pretty good job trying to play both hands right now, but he is stuck to the bottom of the racetrack because Scott Stenzel is shoving him, and now Brandon Peterson, who was pushing McBride to the lead, getting a pretty hefty push from the 50 of Beau McGuire. They're trying to battle for that top spot. Instead, they'll get shuffled back to about third as Stenzel gives the 2 of McBride a heck of a push, and now it's going to be 3 cars clear as Thomas J. George making the move up the inside to bring the 1 clear. Top 3 are single file as they head back to 1.
A lot of shuffling by 10th place, a lot of checking up, and nearly 3 wide as everybody tried to avoid the 14 machine of Joey Jatina, who just slid towards that yellow line through the tri-oval, got the car unsteady. He was able to hang on to it, and everybody has since survived. They keep it going the right direction, and now the battle heats back up high. The 78 of Brandon Peterson, as you mentioned, with help from the 50 of Beau McGuire. The Pepsi Chevrolet helping out the 78 Toyota, but they get separated. Center of the corner, the inside lane prevails out of 4. Brett McBride can own this lap once again as they come to take lap number 37. The 2 machine back on point.
And we're trying to go 3 wide, a little bit further back in the pack, around 7th, 8th, 9th place right now, where Scott Saunders, Joey Jatina, Guy Snyder, Garrett Atwell, those 4 or 5 cars right back there, we're getting a little bit squirrely coming through the tri-oval this last time by. They get it sorted back to 2 by 2 by 2 behind your front 3 of McBride, Stenzel, and George, but it was almost a pretty dicey moment there coming across the stripe for a couple of our drivers in this top 10.
The outside lane has now slid back to 4th as the 78 of Brandon Peterson finds himself slipping as the support behind his drafting partner, the 50 of Beau McGuire, has since disappeared. So now it is just 2 cars versus a big single file freight train on the inside lane. 78 and 50 though of Peterson and McGuire trying to make something work. They gain a little bit of headway, but they got to go up the hill into turn number 1. That stalls them out a little bit right here now out of 2 and down the back straightaway. They're going to get a little bit of a run coming down that hill. The 14 out of line again. That's Joey Jatina. He has to cause everybody to back out of it. Snyder has to get out of the gas and everybody scatters. They once again survive. But a continuing problem is that 14 of Joey Jatina appears to be battling some sort of handling issues. Second time that 14 has nearly gone off track out of turn number 2.
We talk more about handling issues here at Daytona than we do at the other sister plate track, Talladega, Evan, as we go on board with the 14 of Joey Jatina right here. And I'll tell you, that car has not looked comfortable in the draft ever since we went back to Green Flag Racing. It just seems like he's not been able to quite hold it all the way down on the inside of the racetrack. And as we continue to move forward here, coming up on halfway, we've just had a change for the lead. Brandon Peterson in the number 78 has taken over the point from the 2 of Rhett McBride. The problem is he may not hold it all the way to the stripe. The outside lane getting a run again. The number 50 of Beau McGuire getting a big push from the 92 of Jason Lester. He gets to the bottom, picks up Peterson. The 2-car draft of the 50 and 78 back together again, and it's going to hand Beau McGuire the race lead as we are 1 lap away from halfway.
Brandon Peterson jumped out of the high lane down in front of the 2 of Rhett McBride, and as soon as he did so, he dropped back. The outside lane chugged right along at a 50 of Beau McGuire with help from the 92 of Jason Lester. Made that pass. Now Lester is the lead car on the outside lane. He has help at a 59 of Garrett Atwell down the back straightaway. They are side by side for the top 4 positions. Outside lane gets a little bit broken up, about half a car length. Gets in between the 92 and the 59 who lead the charge on the outside lane. That's going to hold up another 2-car tandem of the 68 and the 49 to 68 machine of Scott Simley with help from the 49 machine of Scott Sanders on the outside lane. 4 cars trying to make it work. They all get a little bit squirrely out of the corner contact as the 59 nearly gets into the right rear of the 92, and the 50 machine of Beau McGuire once again will lead, and he will take the halfway point.
And at halfway, I know it's tough for us to do with as quickly as these positions change, but let's look down the leaderboard while we've got just a couple of seconds. Beau McGuire, your leader. Brandon Peterson, 2nd. Jason Lester, 3rd. Rhett McBride, 4th. 5th, the 59 of Garrett Atwell. 6th goes to Scott Stenzel. 7th, Scott Simley. 8th, Scott Saunders. 9th, Thomas George. 10th, Michael Woolley. At halfway now of the Garry Mercer 200 from the World Center of Speed. Leaders working into turn number 3. Evans, still the 50 of Beau McGuire, and the 78 of Brandon Peterson. And we're halfway home. So what have we learned now from the first half of this race that these guys can apply to the second half of tonight's 200-mile affair?
Well, again, we know that the outside lane can work, and typically you would think that you got to kind of force that guy to make a mistake. You mentioned that that double yellow line is your best friend. Those guys on the inside, no one's getting below that 50 of Beau McGuire. He's going to ride that double yellow line unless he finds it necessary to block the outside lane. We're seeing it work right now. The single file inside lane has all the cars. There's about 12 cars in that lead draft on the bottom lane. There's 2 cars on the outside that's about to pass them. It is possible. You got to be risky, though. You see the 59 right there gets off the back bumper. The 92, Jason Lester, backs out of it for safety purposes. Later in this race, that 59 is going to be full on into the back over the 92 on the outside lane, and that's when things can get real dicey.
And we've got a couple cars headed to pit road right now. One of our tandems, the number 1 of Thomas J. George, and the number 27 of Guy Snyder hitting pit lane right now. You want to have drafting help when you get there. Here at lap number 42, beginning lap number 43, the 1 of the 27 going to hit pit road right now for service. The 1 of Thomas J. George hits his marks perfectly. Now, left side tires going on to this race car, and it looks like it's going to be a 2-tire pit stop. Down and away, they took the lefts that they did not take on the first pit stop at quarter distance right here. Got a couple of more friends, it looks like, heading down pit road with him. And what this looks like, Evan, is now we're going to start to see something that we don't always get to at Daytona International Speedway, and that's green flag pit stops.
And you guys can enter as a group, but if you don't leave in a big pack, then that can really hinder your ability to get back up to speed. That's why you need drafting partners to get back out there on pack. We saw that first group that came down included about 3 cars. They left pit road, however, a little bit more separated. So down the back, they're going to have to kind of check up for those guys that left second and third, get back grouped together. So entering together is just as important as exiting together. That's why they all got to be in communication, taking those 2 left side tires after they all took 2 right side tires on the yellow flag pit stops. That pit stop came just past the halfway point with about 38 laps to go.
Yes, it did. So now we're going to see, it looks like maybe the 1 in the 27 short pitted just a little bit. None of the other leaders really wanted to hit pit road right this immediate second. And Jason Lester, your race leader in the number 92 now, about to have a run from a tandem on the outside lane. We've only been able to see about 2 or 3 cars get hooked up on the outside lane, but for the first time in about 20 or 25 laps, we're seeing the 42 of Scott Stenzel go to the outside of the racetrack. He is now going to be the pusher for the 59 of Garrett Atwell. They're up to third. They want a little bit more. Scott Stenzel showing that not only can he lead a tandem tonight, but he's a pretty good pusher too.
Yeah, and there's no security. You're going to see guys that ride around the inside line. Next thing you know, they're going to drop back to the tail end of that little group that they're in. They're going to be trapped on the outside. You can't be safe at this racetrack. That's what brings up the question. At that white flag, you want to be leading and you want to be blocking. You want to be in second and be able to be in control of your own destiny and try to make the pass. It's almost a game of chess. The outside lane now is going to have to work 3 wide around the lap machine. The 5 machine of Mark Bratcher is the only car that has lost lap, and actually that time probably as Jason Lester, race leader, puts him down another lap. Mark Bratcher in the 5 machine will go 2 laps down. Other than that, 29 cars remain on the lead lap.
About to be 28 cars right here. The leaders rapidly approaching one of our cars that just went down pit road. I believe that's the 3rd machine that came down with the 1 and 27, Evan, and that what we've seen is the 1 of Thomas George and the 27 able to hook back up as we go 3 wide to avoid lap traffic, and we have a battle for the lead. This is how dicey it can get when you're trying to lap a car. You've got to be careful not to lose the momentum, or you're going to be in a world of hurt. And what we just saw right there, a little bit of contact between the 42 of Stenzel and the 92 of Jason Lester. Everybody manages to hang on to it, but you could see the smoke coming where the 42 and the 92 made contact, getting ready to go into turn number 1. That could have been disastrous.
And now they catch their breaths because that got real messy there down the front straightaway. A lot of cars trying to find a spot in line. You saw the 42 of Stenzel tried to jump down and follow his drafting partner, the 59 of Garrett Atwell. Didn't quite have enough room and just nearly came over the nose. Got that right in front of the 92. Could have easily been turned in front of this pack. The outside lane now consists of the 14 and the 51. The 14 of Joey Chatina on the outside lane with help from 51 of Doug Manning. You see the 42 of Stenzel. He wants to get by. He jumps up to the high side. The 59 of Garrett Atwell thinks of doing the same. He's forced to stay down low, and now Stenzel using the outside lane with help from Joey Chatina. The 14 is just pushing everybody to the lead tonight. That's about the 3rd car he's done that too. And Scott Stenzel goes to the point. Joey Chatina in tow to 2nd.
But I'll tell you right now, that 14 and the 42, I think Chatina and Stenzel are the best tandem that I've seen work together so far tonight. When those 2 particular cars get hooked up, no matter who is pushing, those 2 can drive away from this field in a relative hurry, open up a 4-car length advantage over Garrett Atwell in 3rd. But I'll tell you, if I'm a guy 7th, 8th, 9th place with a lap or a lap and a half to go, I want Joey Chatina pushing me. He's been the best pusher all night long on this racetrack.
Quick update, the lead pack is 18 cars. First car in that second pack is Dan Murray in the number 55 machine. He sits in 19th position. These guys are about 13 plus seconds back. They've actually lost about 2 seconds in the last 5 laps to that lead draft. They consist of positions 19th through 24th, considering Dan Murray, Jonathan Cadell, Jamie Moore, James Robinson, Eric Arnold, and Matt Lacrosse, as all those guys ride single file 6 cars that make up the second group, about 13 or so seconds away from this big lead draft.
And want to update because I did not get a chance to when everything got dicey between Stenzel and Lester, but the Kevin Linden machine, the number 48, is the third car that came in with the 1 and the 27, and was the car that we just saw the leaders put a lap down. So 28 cars remaining on the lead lap right now, as we see about 5-6 cars here back to Brandon Peterson go single file. Rhett McBride, surprisingly, has dropped all the way back to 7th right now, but of course, Evan, as we've seen, you can go from 7th to 1st in just a matter of a lap or 2 right here, depending on who you can hook up with. You can hook up with a pretty good race car tonight. It doesn't take long to get to the front of this field.
And again, now things you mentioned have kind of settled down because it was starting to get real dicey. We are past the halfway point, and actually this time by the start-finish line is Joey Jettina. He's been helping everybody out all night long. He has actually gone to the point in his number 14 machine as they go down the back straightaway. Look at the 59, Garrett Atwell, trying to do it single-handedly. Does somebody go out there and help him, or will he be left out to dry? The 92 of Jason Lester thinks about it. They stay single file in the 59, had to take the chance, and now he will drop back until somebody opts to help out his Chevrolet on the outside. This time by, Joey Jettina is going to take 30 laps to go up in the number 1 position. They have settled down, but again, these drivers know the laps are winding down. We've passed the halfway point. We're on the downhill side of things. The anticipation of is picking up, and again, the excitement is only going to rise, but things are going to get real ugly there about 10 laps ago. They have since settled down, but I can guarantee you it's going to get cranked up again a notch as these laps continue to wind down. Scott Stenzel in the 42 is pushing the 14 of Joey Jettina. Those are the top 2. A draft has now formed on the outside. The 92 of Jason Lester has jumped out in front of the 59 of Garrett Atwell. They're trying to make things work out there, and now the 59 of Atwell is going to leave the 92 of Lester, who actually went out there to save him. Gamesmanship going on up front.
That's not gamesmanship, that's chess, and as we come across the line to complete 28 laps to go, you start remembering these things. Oh, we got trouble! 1 car hard in the outside wall. It's the number 50 of Bo McGuire. Everybody scatters to avoid a second crash. The 78 of Brandon Peterson gets turned. We've got trouble at lap number 53. Caution flag flies as about 2 separate incidents collect quite a number of cars at the front of this field, but Bo McGuire was running 3rd. I couldn't tell if he got turned or just lost it. I think he had some help, but very dicey, and as everybody checks up to avoid, it stacks up and collects about 5 or 6 additional cars, and a lot of carnage now at the entrance of turn number 1.
Yeah, that all starts with the 50 machine riding single file, comes up on the 42 of Stenzel, who had just lost his draft with the 14 of Jettina, so Stenzel a little bit slower than Bo McGuire. McGuire backed out of it, kind of moved down a little bit, had his left side tires on the middle of that double yellow line, and a 59 hesitated. He tried to go to the outside lane and split the gap, but a 92 out there, and as soon as he tried to make the move, the 50 tried to center himself back out. McGuire tried to get back center with the 42's bumper, ended up coming across the nose of the 52 into the outside lane, and the 50 clogged the track, and you mentioned almost 2 incidents as a couple more cars pile them on in there as they were only trying to avoid that incident. I know that the 68 goes to the apron to avoid it and tries to come back up and actually comes over the 59, gets wrecked by him over the nose, and a whole mess of cars make it a parking lot down through that corner. And it was right when things settled down that chaos broke out, but nonetheless, under our second caution of the race.
And that's a mistake on my part. Similarly painted machines, I think I called that the 78 of Brandon Peterson, but it was the Scott Simley machine that was the second incident, or what the car that was turned to start that second melee down in turn number 1, and trying to get a count on exactly how many cars were collected in this, and try to get a count on how many cars are pretty well damaged right here. Going to come to the line to complete lap number 54 this time, but Right now, Evan, I'm seeing maybe 10, 11 cars that got some sort of damage in this, as I think the leaders are about ready to hit pit road right here.
Yeah, Joey Jatina is going to lead this charge down pit road. We've seen them make right sides only. We've seen them most recently make left sides only, the majority of these leaders, when they come down for green flag pit stops. Now they pit on lap 55 out of 80, so getting ready to transition over to that lap number 56. By the time we get back green, it'll be about 58 or so on these tires. Should be good to the end. Trying to see the fuel strategy. Joey Jatina has already made quick work of his stall. No tires, gas only for our race leader. 14 is going to exit pit road P1.
And it's going to be a big scramble behind him. We'll reset the running order when we come back, but going to take advantage with about 25 laps to go to slide in another break here from the Daytona International Speedway. This is RSR Full Throttle Cup Series action on LSRTV.
A race car has a soul, and the Audi 90 Quattro had a very special soul. When we came to the States with this car, nobody could believe what we can achieve with this car. Small engine, 5-cylinder, it's a German saloon car. We knew that we can only win the race by using all the car has.
The green flag is out. And here we go.
The 5-cylinder engine was it was a jewel. It was lighter and it was more compact. You put your foot on the throttle and you could use the power instantly.
Welcome back to LSRTV and tonight's coverage of the Garry Mercer 200 from the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway. Jacob Seelman and Evan Pasoko up top, high above this 2.5-mile behemoth of a racetrack built by Bill France back in 1959. And coming off, or getting ready to come off, our second caution flag of the evening. A very, very dicey one started when the number 50 machine of Bo McGuire got turned in front of the field after trying to make a move to the outside and coming back down, or rather making a move to the inside. Check me on that one. And just not enough room, cars coming together, and McGuire gets turned hard into the outside concrete. No safer barrier where he hit. And ultimately, everybody stacks up behind him, and a couple of different incidents. Scott Simley getting turned around and getting some pretty heavy damage, Evan, but getting ready to double up to go back to green here in a few moments. But I'll tell you, we were just waiting for that hornet's nest to explode, and right now it certainly has.
And we saw a lot of that dicey action, 2-3 wide, everybody checking up and trying to find a way through it all about 10 laps prior, and that accident actually happened right when we thought things were calming down and kind of getting into a little rhythm. Now you've got these guys restarting just outside of 20 to go. Time to hang on.
They are trying to hang on. While we've got 1 quick second as the leader's going down the back straightaway about a half lap from green, take a look at the point standings for the Full Throttle Cup Series. Eric Brundy's in the number 94. Up to P4 right now for this restart. Your championship leader, 68 points ahead of the number 2 of Rhett McBride. Third is the Jonathan Cattle Machine, 84 points back. Fourth, the Scott Simley Machine, who was involved in that crash, 107 back. Fifth, Thomas George in the 114 back. The rest of your top 10 in the championship right now: Nathan Little, Steve Gottschalk, Kevin Linden, Scott Stenzel, and Brandon Peterson. But of course, as we're reminded, these points really don't mean a whole lot, because as long as you have a win, you will qualify when the points reset for the chase for the championship here in the Full Throttle Cup Series. And that is what matters right now. The top 4 all have wins. Everybody else from 5 to 10 still looking for their first win of the season to qualify for the chase for the championship. But right now, what they're looking for is a green flag. Guy Snyder, Thomas J. George, going to be on the front row. They've been a pretty good drafting tandem all night long. They're going to lead the field back to green, and there the green flag is in the hands of the flagman. Guy Snyder, Thomas J. George on the gas. Second row is Brennan Mercer and Eric Brundy's. They've been at the back of the pack most of this race, but now when it counts, they are up to P3 and P4, and Eric Brundy's is shoving that outside lane, the one of Thomas J. George. Brundy's wants to go to the front, and he has got a full head of steam working through turn number 2.
He has stayed glued to the back bumper of the 1, and see you later. Thomas J. George is going to leave him. The 1 dives to the bottom, and now the 94 of Eric Brundy's has no help. He has to rely on the 14, who seems to be a reliable pusher tonight. That's Joey Jatina. Tries to pick him up, but now the 1 machine has taken a number 1 spot. Thomas J. George in front of the 27. Watch out, lap car on the outside lane. Everybody makes it through cleanly, and Thomas J. George going to go back to the point.
I believe that was Kevin Linden once again on that outside lane. A very wounded machine, just trying to log some laps here tonight. But I'll tell you, that 14 of Joey Jatina, as you said, Evan, just pushing everybody right now. And now he's pushing the championship leader. They are glued nose to tail. And Brundy's trying to make that run down the super stretch for second. Gets about just an inch or 2 of separation between himself and Joey Jatina. That's going to allow the inside lane to make a run for just a second, but now it's 3 wide as Eric Brundy's gets shuffled to the outside. Joey Jatina falls right to the bottom of the racetrack, picks up the 29 of Brennan Mercer behind him, and the championship leader is a lonely man. This would be what we call getting clothesline, as we often use the expression, hung out to dry. Eric Brundy's tried to slide in behind the 42 of Scott Stenzel, couldn't do it. He's still wheel to wheel as they head back to turn 1.
That 94 just helped out a bunch of guys on the outside and got nothing for it. Got abandoned on that outside lane, and he's going to have to try to find somebody, work their way back up. You mentioned him, Brendan Mercer. We talked about them riding outside of the top 20 not too long ago. Their strategy had paid 2 dividends, and they figured it is time to rock and roll. They got up front now, battle for the lead. The 14 of Joey Jatina is the pushy, as the 29 is trying to help him out. Brendan Mercer with the title sponsor on his Chevrolet, trying to get it done, and now the 14 of Jatina dives back in line for safety. The 9 of Terrell's there, and that does not allow the 29 of Brendan Mercer in line, and now Mercer maybe hung out to dry. No, the 14 of Jatina is going to give him another shot. They move to the outside, headed into turn number 1.
And now we're going to see what Brennan Mercer can do as a pusher here tonight. He is trying to shove the 14 of Joey Jatina for the lead. Jatina up to the door panel of number 27 of Guy Snyder. That's the battle for second as they go down the back straightaway. Jatina being pushed by Mercer. Terrell getting in this mix in the number 9. But I'll tell you, that 29's giving the 14 a decent shot. They were right up wheel to wheel with the number 27 of Guy Snyder in the battle for second, but off turn 4, they lost just a little bit of momentum for a second, but now gaining it back. Brennan Mercer shoving the 14 of Joey Jatina. By the time they get to turn 1, it'll be wheel to wheel for the race lead.
206 miles an hour for the 14 of Joey Jattina down into turn number 1 through 2. And now they hit the back straightaway. The 1 of the 27, Thomas J. George and Guy Snyder have separated on the inside lane. There goes Jattina. Can he bring Mercer? No, Jattina drives down to the bottom. He takes the number 1 spot in front of Thomas J. George, and Brendan Mercer's left without a dancing partner up high.
I'll tell you right now, what I'm seeing is you can get a pusher to help you, but as soon as you get to the lead, that pusher, he ain't going nowhere. He's going to go right to the back of this field. And right now, the 14 of Joey Jattina said thank you, but see ya, as he goes to the point, and now being pushed by the 1 of Thomas J. George. The problem is that 1 of the 27, they're drafting partners, so Jattina probably feeling a little bit like a lonely man. But look at Brendan Mercer. He was lonely half a lap ago. Now he's got some help in the form of probably the second strongest car on this racetrack tonight, the 42 of Scott Stenzel. Down the back straightaway they go. All of a sudden, Stenzel gets a full head of steam, trying to push Brendan Mercer all the way to the lead, and he does. Through turns 3 and 4, he stays committed to that 29 up the high lane. Both of them want to get to the bottom. Scott Stenzel using a power move. He and Brendan Mercer go to the top spot across the stripe.
And that all stems from Thomas J. George. Lost a lot of speed at a turn number 2. Got separated for the 14 of Jattina, and Joey Jattina had no help in 3 and 4. That puts Mercer to the point, and Scott Stenzel, man, that 42 is really half of the work to stay up front because he's got a fast machine, but he somehow always gets shuffled back. He sits second right now behind Mercer, but he is putting in an effort to stay where he is as we close in on 50 to go. This time by 16 laps will remain by the start-finish line as the top 5 single file out for now. Guy Snyder leading the outside charge is back about 7th or 8th spot as he has help for the 94 of Eric Brundys. Those two machines are fast. How long will it take them to make some headway? They're moving up top by the stripe.
Can anybody sense that this is the calm before the storm? We are coming up to 15 laps to go, and it's just getting started right here. Third car jumps to the outside lane. That's the 1 of Thomas J. George from 4th. Now, 3 cars up top. The 1 and the 27 leave the 94 of Brundys out to dry. Battle for the lead. Down the back straightaway. Thomas J. George with drafting help from Guy Snyder. They have caught the 29 of Brendan Mercer. They are blowing by the 29 of Brendan Mercer side by side into turn number 3. But Mercer and Stenzel get separated. That's going to be the advantage to the 1 of Thomas J. George off turn 4.
The 27 is on the bumper, and they get separated on the inside line, but there you go. The push, he is going to drive down low. The 1 of Thomas J. George to the point down in front of the 29 of Brendan Mercer. And now the 27 of Guy Snyder, he's left alone. There comes the 94 of Brundys. These two were working together by themselves before the 1 of George stepped out of line to use the 27 to get up front. Now Stenzel thinks about going high. 14 of Jattina goes with him. Now the 29 of Mercer goes high. And all of a sudden the 1 of Thomas J. George is left alone on the inside lane. Brendan Mercer gonna go back to the point. Does he bring the 42 of Stenzel with him? Yes, he does. And now side by side for 3rd, the 1 of Thomas J. George on the inside. The 14 of Joey Jattina out high. 29 of Mercer to the point. The 42 of Stenzel stays high, doesn't come down. That causes a checkup for the outside lane. And now the 1 of Thomas J. George has a shot at 2nd.
I'm not so sure that wasn't completely planned by the 42 of Scott Stenzel. He knew that the 14 of Joey Jattina was right behind him, and he uses that 14. Those two have been the tandem to beat all night long. Scott Stenzel to the outside, bringing the 14 of Jattina right along with him. They've got a lap car up ahead. They need to get to the bottom before they get to turn 3, and they do. Stenzel to the point. Jattina to 2nd. They go by the lap car. I believe, well, no, the 8 machine up top going to get way out of the way.
Oh,
that's Michael Gray.
We got trouble in 3 and 4. The 60 of John Higman Jr. blows his engine in the pack and gets run over by the 3 of LD Sarabia. Drives into the back of him. That collects the 82 and the 7 machine as those 4 cars at least go for a tumble in corner number 4, and the yellow flag once again flies to group these guys back up for once again another late race restart.
Oh boy. Evan, I'm going to let you take us through this one because I actually did not see exactly what happened. I know You said the 60 of Higman popped the motor, and not a worse place you could pop the motor right there going into the corner, and that just really is going to cause a bunch of problems, of course, because when you're at top speed and you blow a motor, you're going to go from 200 to 0 in about 2 seconds.
Again, he didn't have the liberty of being in a big single file draft, so he could back off and ease a little bit. He was trying to make headway. He had the 58 on his nose. They were trying to get up there to the front. Justin Wilson is the guy that he was pushing. And you can see right before he blew up going into the corner, tried to dive low to save it, blew it up, and then by the time he tried to move back high out of the way, you can see he kind of hesitated because the guys behind him were too wide blocking the whole racetrack. He didn't know which way to go, and you saw that 60 kind of move up and down a little bit in the middle. He was trying to figure out where to go, finally decided high. Well, that's where the 3 car of LD Sarabia tried to get around him. The 11 of Jonathan Cadell is one of the only cars that survives out of that pack. The 92 scoots on along. That's Jason Lester. But again, the 3 machine just plows into the back of the 60, gets turned down into the 7. The 82 gets a piece of it as well. And at least those 4 cars got to walk away with damage. And that's only, again, going to group these guys back up at the front of the field for yet another restart, which will be with inside of 10 laps to go.
Oh, this is a restart that I know a lot of people didn't want to see, but it is a restart that if you're a guy like Michael Woolley, the pole sitter, who's dropped back to 16th place, Jason Lester 14th, Justin Wilson 13th, I'll tell you right now, those guys wanted to see that yellow flag, and we have had 22 lead changes so far tonight, and inside of 10 laps to go, Evan, I'll tell you, we've not seen our last lead change. I can guarantee you that.
We've had 3 cautions for 22 lead changes, and again, I don't think that's going to slow down that rate. And again, that's only lead changes at the stripe. That doesn't account for how many times these guys have edged out each other, you know, going down that back straightaway, coming off the corners, which is where they're playing their games, where they're trying to get that strategy to work. The 14 of Jatina just gave a little bit of a bump to Scott Stenzel right to the caution laps, perhaps signaling that those two got to hook up and go. But I can tell you, this next restart, you really got to nail it, which means things are going to get real crazy if you're about that 5th row right in the middle of that pack. Good luck to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And here, Evan, we're talking about strategy. What strategy do you have on this restart? Is this the point where all bets are off? Or are we going to see a couple guys be patient and wait till 4 or 5 laps to go? Can you wait that long and risk a caution flag coming out before you get to make your move? Or is this the restart where you literally have to go from the drop of the green flag and pray that you can get to the front in time?
Realistically, you're going to have to make it work now. We don't have a chance at overtime. There is no group them back up and we'll give them 3 shots at a green, white, checker. This race ends once we complete 80 laps. If you have a caution from lap 76 on, that's going to be the end of it. Again, look, the light's still on the pace car. If they go off on lap 71, we're not going green until 72. Unless there's a caution in those first 3 laps, which is very possible, you only have 4 laps safely that you know you're going to be able to make your move. Once you get past 76, a caution could fly at any moment, and a guy that's out there in the number 1 spot takes home the win. So I wouldn't be sitting back in 5th wait until 2 laps to go, knowing that that caution could easily come the way these guys are going to have to be driving to go up front. It's going to be pretty wild there up front. I think you got to get going.
So basically, it's crunch time. Inside of 10 laps to go, and a restart looking like it's going to be with 8 or 9 laps to go. And let's set this up while we've got a second, Evan. Take a full field rundown. It's so hard to do under green flag conditions because of the fact that these guys are changing positions so constantly. But let's take a Garry Mercer Trucking full field rundown with 10 laps to go. Scott Stenzel, your race leader. Joey Jatina, second. Brennan Mercer rides from the back up to 3rd. Thomas J. George in 4th. Bobby Terrell making a nice rebound to run in the 5th spot right now. 6th place going to Brandon Peterson. 7th to 2nd place man in the championship, Rhett McBride. 8th to Guy Snyder. 9th to Brian Harvey. Don't think we've said his name once tonight. 10th to the number 21, another guy who we were talking a lot about 2 weeks ago at Kentucky, but haven't really talked about him tonight, Matt Lacrosse.
Eric Brundy's your championship leader in the 94 is scored right now in position number 11. Dan Murray just behind him in the 55 in 12th. Justin Wilson, who was up front not too long ago, has sunk to the number 13 position. Jason Lester just behind him in the 92 in 14th. The Navy Nuke of Eric Arnold, the 31, occupies position number 15. And pole sitter Michael Woolley, who got shuffled back after those green flag pit stops about mid-race, in 16th. Michael Gray in 17th position in his number 8 machine. Jonathan Cadell, the last car on the lead lap, in position number 18, and he's actually going to move up to 17th as Michael Gray drops back to position 18. So Michael Gray now the last car on the lead lap. First car 2 laps down, not on the racetrack, scored 19th, is Jamie Moore. John Higman Jr. is in 20th, 3 laps down. Both those 2 cars, 19th and 20th, are no longer on the racing surface.
And by that determination, that would determine that all the rest of this field is now off the racetrack as well. I believe 21st, the LD Sarabia machine, 22nd, James Robinson, 23rd, Steve Gottschalk. The rest of the cars, 12 or more laps in arrears, and all having problems of some sort. Kevin Linden, Scott Saunders, Doug Manning, Garrett Atwell, Bo McGuire, Scott Simley, and Mark Bratcher shotgun on the field in 30th. That's a look at your Garry Mercer Trucking full field rundown with what will be, when we get the green flag here in about another half lap, 9 laps to go.
In positions 22nd and 23rd, James Robinson, Steve Gottschalk not on track. They are on pit road, trying to get some damage repaired, but their machine's pretty torn up. Everybody else around them that is not on the lead lap is behind the wall in the garage. So Robinson and Gottschalk may come back out on track. They have a possibility of passing a John Higman Jr. or a Jamie Moore, who sit just 2 spots in front of them and only a lap in front of them on the racetrack, to try to pick up a couple more spots, but not much more to gain for those drivers as we get ready to kick this thing off for what could be the final restart as we pace through 3 and 4.
So what this is, race fans, is at the time where we say fasten your seat belts, because when we go green this time, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we can tell you it is about to get good. Scott Stenzel, your race leader, chooses the inside lane. Joey Jattina to the outside. They're your front row. Stenzel takes off. Green flag goes back in the air. 9 laps to settle it at the World Center of Racing. Scott Stenzel, your race leader, trying to make a hole for the 14 of Joey Jattina as they head back to turn 1.
Not very uniform restart. Everybody spread out, which is going to make a cluster down into 1 and 2. The 14 of Jattina, only car out there on the outside lane by himself, side by side with the 42 of Stenzel. Door to door down the back. Now Brendan Mercer gets to the back bumper, the 42 of Stenzel. They're going to get by the 14 just in time as the 78 of Brandon Peterson comes to help Jattina on the outside, but it is the 42 of Stenzel and the 29 of Mercer clearing the outside lane into 3 and 4.
And they're going to bring the 1 of Thomas J. George along with them. That outside lane is not anywhere close to up to steam, and it may cost the 14 of Joey Jattina in a big way. Now they start to get it wound up, trying to battle right there for about 4th place in line with Bobby Terrell in the number 9 machine. But it's Scott Stenzel and Brennan Mercer, the 42 and the 29, out front of this field as we cross the stripe, head back through 1 and 2. It's 8 laps to go, and Jattina now on the march down the super stretch. He's up to 3rd, and he wants a little bit more.
29 of Mercer is not on the back bumper of the 42 of Stenzel on the inside lane. This could be the opening that Joey Jattina needs to go to victory lane. 78 on his back bumper. That's Brandon Peterson now in the middle of 3 and 4. Coming off the corner. Their outside lane needs to use that run. They got to get hooked up. Mercer gets to the back bumper of Stenzel before Peterson gets to the back bumper of Jattina. But that 14 of Joey Jattina gets a nose up to 2nd for a moment, but the inside lane pulls a little bit of headway out into 1.
And I'll tell you right now, I'm looking at this field, and I think the only driver in the top 10 that has a victory this season is the number 2 of Rhett McBride, who has 2 wins in 2014. Most of these drivers right now know that they are racing for a spot in the chase for the championship. And whoever crosses that finish line first could well seal and cement his spot in the battle for the season title. Right now, it's Scott Stenzel who leads it 3 cars single file, the first battle as they come to 6 laps to go. Side by side for 4th, Bobby Terrell and Joey Jattina.
Jatina just can't make the headway on the outside. Now a checkup on the inside. A big run. Jatina all the way to second at about 5 seconds. 78 of Brandon Peterson needs to keep his Furniture Road Toyota on the back bumper of Joey Jatina. He tries the side draft and nearly gets into Brendan Mercer. He dives out to the wall. There's no room to come back down. And a big bobble for Joey Jatina on the outside lane. And now the top 4 on the bottom could clear the outside lane, led by Scott Stenzel.
That could cost Joey Jatina a spot at the win right here, or rather a shot at the win as they work off turn number 4 this time by. Drop Jatina back to about 6th place. Side by side, he has got a ton of momentum to make up, but all of a sudden, Brandon Peterson lays the foot to the floor and Brendan Mercer goes to the outside. Abandons Scott Stenzel as we work lap number 76 through turns 1 and 2. Side by side, and now 3 wide for second. Behind race leader Scott Stenzel. Jatina, the run up the middle, battles for the lead down the back straightaway.
The 29 of Mercer is now the car that's left out of line, side by side, door to door, as 2 tandems try to duke it out into turn number 3. The 42 of Stenzel, race leader on the inside lane, tries to hold off the 14 of Jatina. They get awfully close to the 1 of Thomas J. George. They try to utilize that side draft off of corner number 4. You're on your own from here, boys. A caution flies. She's done. 14 of Stenzel leads it at lap 77.
They are going to have to race every lap. As you said, a little bit of contact. Scott Stenzel gets squirrely as he gets into the 14 and Joey Jatina. They gather it back up and somehow stay straight. Stenzel keeps the lead. Jatina side by side for second. Off turn 2 and down the super stretch. Coming to 3 laps to go. We've got trouble. Red McBride into the pack. The 29 of Brennan Mercer going into turn number 3. The leaders are, but that's going to be the caution flag that they did not want to see.
The 2 gets hooked going down the back straightaway. Rhett McBride, you mentioned, maybe the only driver in the top 10 that had a win on the season. The 29 of Brendan Mercer trying to side draft the 2 of McBride, leaves that double yellow line by about half a car length, just as the 29 tried to come down off the corner to get right up on that right rear to side draft, hooking the 22 into the outside wall. Mercer down in front of traffic, collecting championship leader, the 94 of Eric Brundys, gets a piece of it. And when it is all said and done, the Chevrolet of Scott Stenzel, if he can keep it around the racetrack a couple more times under the caution flag, will pick up his first win on the season, 4th top 5, and lock himself essentially into the chase for the RSR championship.
Wow. We all knew it was coming, and as you and I had both alluded to a couple of times over the course of this broadcast, Evan, I tell you, we knew inside of 4 laps to go, they'd be racing every lap like it was the last lap, because in essence, it was the last lap. Because you get a caution, the race is over. You get the checkered, the race is over. But if that caution came out inside the final 5, we were done. And for Scott Stenzel, he was out front when he needed to be. And as you said, if he can limp it around under pace car speed for 2 more laps, 5 more miles right here, he will pick up his first win of the season. And as you said, the 9th place man in points, all of a sudden sitting pretty, and he'll lock himself into the chase for the title.
And again, we talked about how the 94 of Eric Brundys, he is no longer on track, was involved in that incident, entered tonight as your championship leader. However, he did have 68 points over Rhett McBride. Rhett McBride was also in that wreck. So McBride's going to finish, sits right now 16th. Brundys in 18th. So what could have been a big gain for Rhett McBride, he gets collected in it as well. So top 2 in the championship at least get involved in that. So not much going to change in that front row of the championship, but a couple of these guys, third on back, may be able to squeak up a little bit of room. Again, the points will reset once the chase for the championship starts. So they're just trying to get those wins. Again, top 4 in the championship standings entered tonight. 5th through 10th didn't have a win. Scott Stenzel enters tonight championship 9th position, and he is able to walk away with this win as long as he can complete about 3 more miles of caution.
So what a night it's been, and I'll tell you right now, an exciting end to what has been a hold your breath race tonight. And The top two in the championship will not change, as you alluded to, Evan. They had a big gap back to Jonathan Cadell in third, who was almost 90 points out of the championship lead. He'll make up a few points tonight. I don't think he'll make up enough to overhaul Rhett McBride, and definitely not going to make up a ton of ground on Eric Brundys. But what can we say about the job that Scott Stenzel's done tonight? He has been up in front of this field virtually the entire night. He had one of the most dominant cars, and you can say what you want about, oh, he only got the win because the caution flag came out. That's not true at all. That 42 had a powerhouse machine, and he definitely went up, made the move when it counted, and has earned what will be in about another 2.5 miles a trip to victory lane at the World Center of Racing.
And that 42 car looks a lot more pretty than it should, because he had to work for that. You look at a guy like Bobby Terrell in the number 9 machine, ran a smart race, pretty much stayed on that inside lane, ran his own race, bought his time, and was patient, and is able to walk away with 6th place finish. Scott Stenzel would go from 1st back to 7th, get pushed to the inside, to the outside. He didn't care who he'd get hooked up with. He didn't care when they would abandon him and jump down to that inside lane. That 42 just kept that pedal floored to the ground, and he kept on pushing, and he absolutely had to work to get to where he was. And the 42 you mentioned had a dominant car this evening. Not an easy win by any stretch of the imagination. He had to work for that one.
No, and I want to say something else right now too, because I've had a chance under these final couple of caution laps to check the stat books, and for Scott Stenzel, he's going to remember this night for a number of reasons. Number one, and possibly one of the most important, he will lock himself into the chase for the RSR championship. Number two, he gets a win at the World Center of Racing. But number three, and arguably the most important for Scott Stenzel tonight, not only is it his first win on the season, but it is also going to be, in about a half lap, his first career RSR victory. And when you get a first at the Daytona International Speedway, that is something to celebrate.
And one of the things that we mentioned entering tonight was the fact that there could be an underdog that takes the win. Some may consider Scott Stenzel an underdog. By no means. Again, sitting on 3 top 5s this season, has not really got the results. He has worked hard. He is top 10 in the championship standings. Not necessarily a favorite, but by no means an underdog is that 42 of Scott Stenzel. And obviously you mentioned walking away with his first career RSR victory, locking himself into the chase for the championship. This could give that team a lot of momentum that they need to knock off a couple more wins here before that championship battle starts. You're really giving that 42 Yellow Stripe Chevrolet team a boost as he comes for this checkered flag.
Crack open the champagne, light the fireworks, and get ready for what is arguably going to be one of the biggest celebrations in a long, long time as he works his way slowly at a crawl through the tri-oval, but he doesn't care what speed it's at. It's going to be the first career victory as he comes to the caution and checkered. Scott Stenzel wins the Garry Mercer 200 at Daytona International Speedway. That number 42 machine, for the first time in his career, is an RSR victor at long last.
Thomas J. George walks home with a 2nd place finish. Joey Jutina 3rd, Brandon Peterson 4th, Justin Wilson 5th, Bobby Terrell 6th, Guy Snyder 7th, Dan Murray 8th, Matt Lacrosse 9th, and Brian Harvey rounds out the top 10 as the 42 of Scott Stenzel gets ready to do something that he's waited a long time to do as he tries to burn that thing down on the front straightaway.
And that's the kind of celebration you want to see right there. The burnouts in the tri-oval, and how special it is at this racetrack of all others, because it is the one where NASCAR racing was built, and arguably one of the hardest to win on the iRacing service because of the style of racing that you have to have here at Daytona. But Scott Stenzel has defied the odds, taken a dominant car to victory lane tonight. And in just a few moments, we'll talk with your podium tonight and your first-time winner, Scott Stenzel. But first, these words as we hit the checkered flag tonight at the World Center of Racing. We'll be right back to LSRTV and the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series from Daytona International Speedway. Welcome back to what is now going to be a very exciting Garry Mercer Trucking post-race show here on LSRTV, the aftermath of tonight's RSR Full Throttle Cup Series. Garry Mercer 200 from the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway. Jacob Seelman alongside Evan Pasoko, as we've just seen 80 action-packed laps, and unfortunately, Evan ending the night under the caution flag, but exciting racing nevertheless, and it's always fun to not only see a first-time winner, but when that first-time winner gets it done at a track as legendary as the Daytona International Speedway, you can't ask for much more than that.
No, definitely. And again, it would have been great to race out those final 3 laps, and it was great racing. We saw a lot of hectic racing too. And it was really getting, I mean, the energy was really getting there in those closing laps. And obviously, you know that a caution could fly. That's why you got to play the strategy card. In the end, the 42 ends up leading the correct lap, which was lap number 77 when the caution flag flew. That's all she wrote. And that's how we have Scott Stenzel, a first-time winner in the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series.
Yeah, we do, and certainly it's going to be a celebration for him. And now going to catch up with our podium here tonight, and going to start off with going from third to first tonight, because the driver that helped Scott Stenzel for a good portion of that race was the Joey Jatina machine, the 14 machine, with a very strong run through most of this race. And Joey, you come home third tonight. I know you wanted to be able to get up there and battle for that win. You got shuffled back on that last restart. It just looked like a little bit too far to make the charge all the way to the front. Did you need those last 2 laps?
Definitely with my teammate there, Justin Wilson. He had just got to my back bumper, and I think with that little help, we could have done it. And I gotta say to Brendan Mercer, I apologize. I think I hung him out a couple of times tonight, but I don't get to run the series a bunch, and tonight I wanted to win, so I think I split him 3 wide, and then there was Justin. We got the caution. So, but as much as me and Scott worked together tonight, like I told him a while ago, I wasn't going to let anybody go by him. I wasn't going to push nobody by him. If anybody was going by him, it was going to be me.
and certainly a show of loyalty tonight. You two looked like the dominant tandem for that entire race. Was it going to be just a matter if you two had gotten hooked up in those final 2 laps of whichever one of you was ahead there, then it was just going to be a battle royale off turn 4?
I personally think that we had nothing. We didn't even talk about anything. I just think that we would have, either way, would have helped each other if we were in that position. But unfortunately, we didn't have that. So I wanted to beat him, and I didn't. So good win to Scott Stenzel tonight. I'm a big fan of Mr. Stenzel.
First-time winners are always fun, Joey, and I know you wanted that 5th career win. Doesn't quite come, but still put a very strong car 3rd place tonight. I know you can't do it by yourself, and there's sponsors, stickers, and a lot of supporters around you that help make it happen. So who makes it happen for Joey Jatina?
Oh, tons of people. JoeyGRacing.com. You can follow us on the ARCA series. We'll be doing some super dirt late model stuff here soon. We don't quite have the accolades of Scott Stenzel yet, but we're trying. But RSR, RealSimRacing.com. I think if you're out there and you want to race, I think we put on a pretty good show tonight. Don't look for me next weekend in Iowa. I'll be the guy banging off the wall. But as far as tonight goes, I think we put on a great show.
You did put on a great show, Joey. Come home 3rd. Congratulations on a podium finish. We'll look forward to seeing you back in contention here really soon.
Thank y'all very much, and great job.
I think Evans caught up with our 2nd place man down on pit road, Thomas J. George.
That's right, we have. He entered tonight 5th in the championship standings, the highest driver in the points to not walk away with a win and lock himself into the championship tonight. 1 position short, Thomas coming home in 2nd. The caution flag really put a dampen on your chances to try to get that pass there late in the going. What does it feel like knowing that you need to be so close and you come at 1 position short, still searching for that win to get yourself into that championship guaranteed?
Honestly, after the last 5 races, I'll take a 2nd place when it comes to play racing at Daytona, Evan.
10-4 to that. You were in 2nd. Let's walk us through your night. It was an 80-lap affair. You did qualify inside the top 10, and it was a wild one, man. Things were starting to get hairy, and we saw your one machine going high to low, dropping down, getting left, leaving people, doing whatever you could and to battle it out and get up there to those number 1 positions. How'd your night shape out? The car looks like it was pretty, not a lot of damage on that number 1 machine. Looks like it did fairly good. How was your night?
Oh, it was a great night. There was a strategy that we were working with. I got to thank Guy Snyder early on in the race for working with me. After that first caution came out, we decided to go ahead and pit, along with the rest of the field, see if anybody stayed out. And then the call we decided to make was to go ahead and pit with just after halfway, make sure we had enough fuel to get to the end there. And then we could really tandem together and not have to worry about other cars while we switched in the corners. And it was just, I'm not a fan of play racing. I've never liked it, but for what it was worth, it was a great race tonight. In fact, I think all the play tracks I've been to this year, the teams come through and we finished top 10 in every single one of them.
And now you're going to try to ride this momentum into next week's race. We go racing at the Iowa Speedway, a much different beast than Daytona, to say the least. Again, still looking for that first win on the season. Still sitting pretty comfy in the championship standings. 5th when you enter this evening's race. 114 back from the top. Over that will reset once the chase for the championship begins later on here in the 2014 campaign. How confident are you going into Iowa? How you want to approach that racetrack? And what do you think is going to happen there with you and the number 1 team?
I'm extremely confident going into Iowa. I'd love to run the high line at a lot of these tracks. It's a similar way how Bristol runs in 3 and 4. And when it comes to short tracks in general, I just love to run those, and I always seem to do well at tracks like that. And then a couple of weeks from now, we got Atlanta and the Brickyard and Watkins Glen. We got a lot of tracks coming up where I feel very confident. But Iowa, if Richmond's any indication a couple months ago, we'll run well there as well.
We know that you can't do it on your own. Sponsors, shout out to whoever you want to thank. Who makes it happen for you and that number 1 crew?
I'd just like to thank Anthony Fredericks, one of my teammates on iRacing, for painting this American flag paint scheme. Wish I could have gotten in victory lane for him for this particular weekend, but a 2nd place is good. And then next week I'll be debuting one of my 2 primary paint schemes, courtesy of James Collins and all my guys over at All Out Racing as well. We have a great time on here every single week.
Definitely. Well, congrats on the second place finish, and we will look forward to seeing what you can do next week.
Thanks, Evan.
That is Thomas J. George second tonight after he entered fifth in the championship standings, one position short of his target goal of picking up his first win on the 2014 campaign. He says he's confident. He likes a lot of tracks coming up on the schedule. Keep an eye out for the number one as we move forward in this 2014 campaign. Now down in victory lane, Jacob, I think you're with the pretty ecstatic Scott Stenzel down there.
I think ecstatic might be an understatement here tonight. First-time winners are one thing. First-time winners at the Daytona International Speedway, that is something that will last a lifetime. Scott Stenzel, you grab the lead after that last restart. Hold it there till about lap 76, and then all the chaos breaks out behind you. I know everybody behind you was racing like every lap was the last lap. Was it just the goal to get out in front and then know at that point that you had your own destiny in your hands?
Man, that's a great question. I think I could be honest with you and tell you the last 4 laps that you watched, I was looking at my rearview mirror 90% of the time. So I was watching all those holes that were there close up quick, and that was awesome. I mean, that was just great way to get into the chase. I mean, 9th in points. This should lock us in the chase. I mean, win at Daytona. That's what everybody dreams of. This is just great.
The enthusiasm boundless right now, Scott, and I know how big this is for you. Any win at Daytona is big, but when you combine that with the fact that tonight is your first career RSR victory, what does a win like this mean to you, that it comes on the greatest racetrack in this series, and to top it all off, you get your first win against some of the greatest competition on the service here tonight?
Yeah, hats off to everybody out there. These are some real stout drivers in here. There's a lot of big names in this series. I gotta give props where props are due. Joey Gattina helped me out a lot this race, and of course Tom. Tom helped a lot too. So both those guys could have won it. It just, the luck fell my way, and a lot of luck is what you need here to win at Daytona, man. A lot of luck is what you need.
That's absolutely right. It's kind of like playing the lottery out there in the draft. And we know you've done a lot in real life, too, behind the wheel. Were you able to use anything that you've learned, translate it back over to the service tonight? Anything that helped you get this car to victory lane this evening?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I still think back in 2007 when I ran that Talladega race, I finished 7th in ARCA, and the guy who won it was right next to me with 2 laps to go. And I still rethink those days in the shower, waking up. And here I can walk away from this track and go, hey, I put it all on the table, and I don't have anything that I left on the table. It's all on the racetrack. You guys saw it all the squirreliness, all the craziness. It might have looked nuts there at the end, but man, it's worth it, man.
It was definitely worth it for you tonight, getting the trophy, getting the spoils of victory, and you can crack open the fireworks now, my friend. The Independence Day Monday, happy to you. I know you can't do it by yourself, Scott, so who makes it happen for you and the 42 crew tonight in this big win?
Well, I got to thank my sponsor on the car, of course, Yellow Stripes Making the Driver. If you go check out makingthedriver.com, you can learn a little bit more about my career and what I'm trying to do here. I got to thank my wife. She lets me do this kind of crazy stuff here. It's 11 p.m. at night, and I'm rattling pedals, and I've got the volume turned up, so it's tough to sleep in the household when that's going on. And that's pretty much it. I got to thank Gattina there at the end for getting me in position. If it wasn't for him for pushing me up through the field a couple times, I wouldn't have been positioned. So I appreciate all his hard efforts, and Tom for not tearing my bumper down. So it was great broadcast. You guys do it right. Keep doing this stuff. This is what makes it happen. And your excitement and all those camera angles and all this cool stuff you guys do here, man, keep it up. It is great. Evan and Jacob, you guys kill it.
We appreciate that, Scott, and let me throw one more thing at you, because a lot of good things have gone on tonight, but the one thing that you need to remember through all this, not only are you a winner at Daytona, but you are a winner in RSR, and that is something that now nobody can take away from you. Congratulations, my friend. You finally made it to the top.
Woo! Thank you, guys. Appreciate it all.
Did I win?
All right, Evan, let's throw it back upstairs here. I tell you what an amazing night. Let's throw it back up, Evan. Run us through this field, because behind the front three, there's still a lot that went back on, a lot of positions to shake out there through this 30-car field tonight.
Yeah, 16 cars were able to hang on to the lead lap. Scott Stenzel obviously walking away in the number one position in the 42. Raining through the top 10 at the checkered flag. Thomas J. George was second. Joey Jatina coming home in third. Brandon Peterson fourth. Justin Wilson fifth. Bobby Terrell in sixth. Guy Snyder seventh. Dan Murray eighth. Matt Lacrosse ninth. Brian Harvey rounded out the top 10. Then you got the Navy Nuke of Eric Arnold in 11th. Jason Lester coming home 12th. Jonathan Cadell in 13th. The 14 position belongs to pole sitter Michael Woolley, and the number 13 comes home back there. Rhett McBride 15th, and then the last car on the lead lap, Michael Gray finishes in 16th. 17th belongs to Brennan Mercer. Eric Brundys in 18th. 19th, James Robinson, rounding out the top 20. The 91 of Steve Gottschalk.
21st tonight was Jamie Moore. All these cars from 21st on back running into problems during one of the big ones on the night. LD Sarabia 22nd, 23rd John Hageman Jr., 24th tonight was Kevin Linden, 25th Scott Saunders, 26th was Doug Manning, 27th Garrett Atwell, who ran at the front for a good portion of this race, as did Bo McGuire, who comes home 28th, Scott Simley 29th, and shotgun on the field involved in the first caution of the night was the 5 of Mark Bratcher. That's a look at your Garry Mercer Trucking final full field rundown after 200 miles at the Daytona International Speedway tonight. Evan, before we toss it off the air tonight, any final thoughts from you?
It was Daytona under the lights. That's what we expected. That's what we got. Again, 3 laps short, and we would have saw a great finish. I know that Scott Stenzel's not going to be complaining. Drove a hell of a race in the 42, walks away in victory lane. We move on to Iowa next week and keep this good racing on going with the RSR guys.
So that's going to do it for tonight's Garry Mercer 200 from the World Center of Speed. Congratulations again go out to the number 42 crew and Scott Stenzel for picking up his first career RSR Full Throttle Cup Series victory under the lights at Daytona. And for all of us up here in the tower, my broadcast partner Evan Pasoko, and our executive producer Laura Lawson, for all of us at LSRTV, this is Jacob Seelman reminding all you race fans out there to keep it off the wall until we meet again. And wherever you may be on the service, we'll see you the next time. Next Monday, we're back right here at 9:30 p.m. Eastern for Iowa. Until then, take it easy, race fans, and have a good night. We'll see you next time. So long, everybody.
Trucking has always been a part of me. It started years ago when my dad and granddad were hauling vegetables to market in Liverpool. The family immigrated to Canada in the late 60s and settled near Alliston, Ontario. I bought my first truck in 1982 and Mercer Trucking was born. Today, Mercer Trucking has over 50 trucks in terminals in Toronto and Los Angeles. Our storage facilities at both terminals can handle any size of distribution needs throughout North America. We service the continental U.S., including Hawaii and Alaska. We run over 120,000 miles per month and some of the best equipment on the road today. We specialize in less than truckload shipments, show freight, we do rush team service deliveries, and haul your refrigerated or heated product. Our regular team service from Canada to California is second to none, and our staff and drivers are among the best in the business. I'm proud of our people and what they can achieve. Trucking is in my blood, it's my livelihood, and it's what I do best.